and 38% of the students were undeclared. So it's a substantial chunk of the student population.
Okay. And again, that was all fake data, but
Right, yeah.
it's representative of where we're kind of at the university.
Right. So, right, 38% of students are undeclared, and based on research performed at several universities, this is resolved by more advisors, which naturally will be more expensive initially. But part of advising is getting one-on-one meetings with students and creating action timelines, not unlike what the ICT major does in ICT 100. Basically, our way to figure out to get undeclared students into a more academic direction, the reason they drop out is because they aren't really working towards anything, is what's accepted, is that through Salesforce, our idea was to virtually create a survey that determines interests for them and filters them into potential majors, and use that data to generate reports to academic advisors who would meet with the students in a advisement role and see if they can get it figured out on a timeline and on a potential major.
Okay, so you know what, let me just listen to the whole pitch number one and then I'll give some feedback. Where's that at?
That is the gist of it right now.
Okay.
We figured we wanted to keep it simple for a first meeting.
Okay, so the first thing, as I've mentioned to a couple other groups, is retention is a very important issue, but whenever you pitch stuff as a consultant, you really should tie it back to the most important aspect, which is financial.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that I would approach this, if I were presenting it, is to say the reason why retention is so important is because each student that we have here for in-state resident is $10,000 per year to our undergoing revenue. And whenever students leave the university, we've lost $10,000 a head. And we can't bring people, it's very hard to bring new students in during the spring. So most of the time that we're gaining them in the fall. So if we lose them in the spring, we've lost that revenue that we can't recapture. So it's very important to make sure that students, especially new freshmen who are arriving, that they feel like they are connected to the campus. They feel that they're welcome, they feel that they're successful.
Mm-hmm.
So part of retention then would be to try and take students who may not feel a connection because they don't have a declared major and help guide them towards something that would tie them to the campus. Because we have very specific majors that other institutions don't, so if they feel really wedded to a specific major, they're more likely to stay with us than to go elsewhere. Is that kind of making sense?
Yeah, definitely.
So, and the reason why I'm giving this feedback is not so much for this project, but I do see this as a learning experience for your future jobs. And even if you're not in a consultant role, but you're trying to pitch things to other departments and trying to get buy-in and collaboration, you know, tying it back to something that affects our salary. So retention, I don't care. We may need to cut staff and we don't have enough money to pay your salary. Oh, now I'm paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do? So, all right, so let's talk about, you said you want to do some sort of survey. What is the survey going to look like? What types of questions are you going to ask, and how is it going to help them choose a major? Because we've got, what, 40 different majors?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes. So this is the idea that I had is that we're going to give them a survey.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there now. Consulting group, did he do only all the work?
No.
Okay, what we came up.
Right.
Okay.
So what we as the group, came up with is that when they take the survey, it's asking, not a perfect analogy wouldn't necessarily be a personality test because that wouldn't help them choose a major, but something similar to that said it gauges their interests, what their goals are, and a couple other factors we haven't really determined yet that'll help point them into a major that'll work. Like if they like working, in outside of class more, sending them to a major like ICT where a lot of classes are hybrid might be more suited to them than be sticking into one where they have to move for class a certain amount of times every day or every week. So with a combination of that, those criteria get filtered into basically a list of criteria that each major would have. And the most it matches up with would be a recommended one, and that gets outputted as a report.
Okay. Any more on that aspect of it?
The report generation or?
The survey.
The survey, it's given to all students who are undeclared. And that information is worked with advisors and to narrow it down from what obviously you want to get a perfect result from a survey. But that combined with meeting with advisors should be able to get a general idea of what a student would be interested in majoring in.
Okay. How many questions can you get that accomplished in?
When I looked at some data for an average survey, just like looking at interests with them, it probably was quite a lot, anywhere almost up to 30 questions, which is...
I think you're undershooting a lot. Have any of you taken the World of Work survey, career placement kind of thing? Okay, about 200 questions, just to try and find indices, and it has sort of work preference types of things, hobbies, interests, kinds of evaluation. So,
do you recommend we go more the personality route then?
well, I'm thinking that this may be a challenge. So do you have a second or third thing?
We do
to
have
pitch?
other, yeah, we do have other.
Okay. Why don't we look at the other ones and then we'll have a bigger conversation, pros and cons. I should have a longer report, I'm sorry about that. And do you have a SharePoint site that you can all share?
We do have a SharePoint site, we're working on updating it right now.
What I'd
so.
suggest, if not tonight, but for the future, is get all the presentations on
Onto
one
one.
site. And then maybe if you want feedback from me, to invite me to that as well.
Oh,
'cause
cool.
then we can interact on it.
Okay, so the top part, what I got highlighted right here is these are the notes that I took during your presentation. So the main was a schedule, the course evaluation, and program advisement. So for this proposed solution, this is going to be focusing on the course evaluation. So some of the critical parts that you address with the issue is, you said it was a mess. Each department can have its own set of questions. Each instructor might offer a turn of surveys, and I've experienced this in my own. Each one's just completely different, and no centralized data collection. So we have a survey that covers all professor course evaluations. We're thinking of 10 questions, keeping it simple. And then these questions will be like, what will you recommend? And they can be kind of like an overall rating out of 10. So kind of like I was looking at rate my professor, and then so it's like instead of a rating out of 10, it's a rating out of 5. And then they have that percent of students that recommend this, and then there's like a little area where you can type, and then there's like these tags you can do for attach it to the professor.
So like attendance required. And
Yeah,
stuff
attendance
like that.
required, tough grader. There's a lot of tags I don't quite remember, but and then if we were to go with this idea, go forward, I was thinking maybe if we could have some of your input, with what questions do you think we should ask to make sure that students are releasing all their opinions, so the administration can say, do we need to cut this instructor or keep him? And then I think this will save UW Stout money because the students can take the survey online. I believe what we're using right now is a Scantron, or
Well, we're using, and again, it really depends on the course.
okay.
Scantron sheets for some, which are the pencil and paper, and then Qualtrics, online survey, and then some are using stuff within either D2L or Canvas, so there are surveys that are available there as well. So again, no central process, no way to aggregate the data.
Yeah, and even with this, like if you made it so that the students had a hold on their account until these were filled out or something like that.
No, I didn't do that.
You don't wanna-
Heavy-handed, yeah.
Okay, so, and I've given this feedback to others groups too. You never want to require anyone to do anything unless you're going to put handcuffs on them, and then there better be a damn good reason to put handcuffs.
Gotcha.
So if you put a hold on their record, it means that they can't register for classes. If they can't register for classes, we don't have tuition. That's a bigger problem than not getting a survey.
Yeah, I understand that now.
And then so there's like Salesforce has this really special survey thing. We can set up a survey in there. And I think that'd be very great because you can link that survey into Salesforce, and so that way it can address your centralized data collection, so that solves that issue as well.
And here's one other tip I'm going to give you, which
Okay.
is for Salesforce, we're not gonna buy an account for every single student to, at the
No.
end of the semester, fill out 4 pieces of
Right.
paper. So what we would wanna do is have some sort of method to send an invite through campus email saying, we notice that you are registered in this course. Here's a link to fill out the course evaluation, and if we don't see it within a certain time frame, another email goes out, just a reminder, you still have an opportunity to give feedback on your instructor, and maybe one more time. Just, again, you don't require them to, but you encourage them to.
And then, I think it'd just be a lot easier for the administrator, whoever ends up taking over. You in Salesforce, you're able to like keep track of the task and like how far are you in that task, and you can create like your own milestones and capstones, and that way it can make it easier.
Okay, so the question then becomes, who else has access to the information from the survey? So is it just some Salesforce administrator on campus? Is that distributed out to certain administrators? Is it distributed out to faculty themselves? So what do you envision? How is that information from the course evaluations distributed?
If I had to give power, it'd be the higher up management, so the chancellor, the dean of students. I'm not really comfortable with the instructors having control over that because there's a chance that they can fiddle around with the surveys. If they got a disapproval,
Okay.
they could delete or remove that survey. So I don't necessarily want to give them.
Well, I see that
access
there's
to that.
actually a couple different levels. So building the survey
Mhm.
would be one level of permissions, but viewing the results, like the graphs, what
Yeah.
are the histograms and so on, that you may want to share with a broader audience, so a non-edit kind of.
Like, or non-edit or delete, like what we were doing
Yeah.
before. So those, even the instructors could see those as long as they just couldn't delete them.
Yep.
Or like, even if just the program director, saw it.
Yeah, and then we
you
can
help
set
that way.
permissions, so like depending upon how confidential you want it, we could set it so like the instructors can't see it at all, and then it can just go to like a database or have a specific
Department
data.
chairs or
Yeah.
program chairs, yeah. So here's one other thing to consider is when you're doing a reporting, especially if it's a sensitive area, you want to ensure that there are certain things that are visible to a broad audience that are aggregate only, so you can only see the results, you can't see the details. So you can't see that James gave this person a really bad rating,
Mhm.
now I'm gonna hunt James down and give him a hard time.
Right.
So if you're gonna be sharing data broadly, then something that is like an aggregate histogram showing what are the counts of each of the levels of their rating within that.
So like if they did like a 1 through 10 and then created a graph for it.
Yeah,
But-
exactly.
Okay, gotcha. But would they see obviously they wouldn't see the names of who put it on there.
Correct, they just see a count of
Yeah,
how many people
okay.
chose which of the.
Yep, that makes sense.
answers.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any more on this?
No, that's all we had.
Okay. Any third ideas, or were those the two?
We
Those
just
are
stuck
the
with the
two.
2 for
Yeah,
now.
okay. All right, so this one, from what you presented, I think is clear to me about, can this be useful? Again, you need to make the financial pitch of why are we doing it this way. This one is mainly efficiency. If we want to try and do research, currently with our course evaluations, we have to gather piles of paper that are in different formats. We have to try and convert information. Well, these questions aren't the same as these, so now I have to interpret which questions are similar across the different evaluations. It's all very hand, based. There's no way to automate the data stream. There's no way to compare across sections. So here's something that's interesting. And this is an administrator cap. If I'm getting evaluations from a specific section and all the ratings are low,